Hello, welcome nation. This is Ali Nasseh, and I'm joined today with Dr. Alex Flory for this Friday question session. Today's Friday question is about the importance of sealer resorption. Is it important for sealers to resorb or not, and why not? Okay, Alex, thank you first for joining me.
My pleasure.
And the question has come up on our website, Alex, that sealer resorption, is it important or not? And the reason why is because the bioceramic sealer, which is a sealer that you and I use, is non-resorbable, and that's basically what we recommend. Mm-hmm. But some people have a fear that if they create a puff or a big puff or something like that, that they're not going to have resorption of the sealer. And I just wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time explaining why is it important not to have a resorbable sealer, and what are the problems that could arise as a result of that, and why it is important to address good technique so you don't get big puffs. And to that extent, I think one of the important things to understand is in the hydraulic condensation technique that we have, the sealer acts as an interface between the gutta percha and the canal walls. And the job here is to make sure that you put enough sealer that it basically is filling in that interface, but it's not extruding out. So historically, Alex, when people end up getting a big puff using the ZOE and the resin-based sealers, what happens to those puffs and overfills?
Yeah, people tell you not to be concerned because it will be resorbed.
Because it will be resorbed, right? But the problem we don't realize is that it's not like the macrophages and the solubility of the water knows that it should resorb the sealer outside the root and stop exactly at the apical constriction.
It will continue.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is that in time, the sealer will actually resorb from inside the canal. Because if you look at it at higher magnification, you will see that you still have, at a microscopic level, that sealer interface around the gutta percha. And in time, when you have resorbable sealers, which will resorb from outside the canal, they will also resorb from inside the canal, which at higher magnification you can see you end up with that area of leakage around your gutta percha. Now, the gutta percha is your filler, and the sealer is basically what traditionally we've called a sealer. But when it resorbs out over time, you end up having problems not only with potentially recontamination of the area if you haven't cleaned out the canal adequately, you can have bacteria that comes back, or you can have problems with coronal leakage.
Agree.
I mean, what is one of the techniques that used to be used before with ZOE, which created problems in the long run? Right?
That's right, yeah.
It was the silver point. So the silver points were using that kind of a resorbable sealer in order to do one cone technique, and that was the problem.
And you end up with just the point and no sealer.
In time, it's the sealer resorbed out of the tooth, and you ended up getting leakage. I wanted to also share with you these few clinical x-rays that were shared by us with one of our faculty at Overfill in San Francisco, and these cases were showing that the case was done in 2005 using a zinc oxide eugenol-based sealer, using vertical condensation. Very nice case, filled beautifully. But the same tooth, another radiograph in 2014, shows that the little bit of lateral canal and some of the extensions had resorbed over time. Now, this is inside the root, but it had resorbed over time, and the tooth now, the fill looks a little bit shorter now. And the reason why is because of the solubility of this particular sealer, the zinc oxide eugenol-based sealer. And here's another case that shows that the vertical condensation was used using a resin-based sealer, and everything looks great. You have all of these cauliflower type of Christmas tree fireworks right at the apical area of the C-shaped root in 2007. However, in 2013, it seems like all of that stuff been basically washed out of the inside of the tooth, and it's all gone. So while your cases look beautiful at the time that you finish and you take your post-op X-ray, and we gloat about this vertical condensation and all these little ramifications. If you're using resorbable sealers in time, the material will resorb out, and then you end up having the problems associated with that. So next time you create nice cases that are having all of these types of additional canals, the question you should ask yourself is the sealer resorbable or not? So what are some of the best ways, Alex, then given the fact that we're concerned about having non-resorbable sealers that create a big puff outside the tooth, what are some of the best ways that we can reduce the incidence of potential overfills with non-resorbable sealers, such as the bioceramic-based sealers, such as BC Sealer, for example?
Well, first, just going back a second, I think the ideal sealer is the non-resorbable. This is very clear at all levels, including histology. But really, you should avoid these. The material is ceramics is very biocompatible. It will be okay to have that material outside the apex, but you still don't want to have an aggressive puff of sealer because it always causes inflammation, number one. And two, just plain your case is going to look ugly.
Right.
I mean, it's not just very scientific.
It's treating the radiograph and how it looks, obviously.
It's going to look, if something goes bad, they'll blame it on the sealer. So ideal is to be careful on the sealer placement. You don't have to be shy. You can apply enough sealer, but just careful not to inject that sealer down away from the constriction there.
Yeah.
So the placement of the sealer is really important, so you're not overdoing it. You may get a little bit of a puff with the hydraulic condensation, but it won't be exaggerated.
Right. And I think we here at Rebuild Endo, using these premixed syringeable bioceramics, have described and differentiated between the two ways you can apply the sealer to the canal through a basic technique and an advanced technique. On the basic side, Alex, we recommend that they actually inject into a paper pad outside the mouth and transfer the sealer almost in traditional ways into the canal using their files and so on. And that allows them to have an adequate amount of sealer without having too much sealer.
Exactly.
The advanced technique then allows you to inject directly into the canal, only in the upper half of the canal, and then push it down with a file. You should never try to inject all the way down to the apex because that's very difficult to control. And the differentiation factor between the basic and the advanced, the way we like to differentiate the two techniques is if you have a microscope, then you are able to use the advanced. And the reason for it is because
you can see it.
You can see how much you're injecting.
Sealer is dispensing.
Yeah, because the problem with injection is that if you're using loupes or you're just doing a naked eye, you can't see how much material you're injecting. Are you injecting too much or too little? So you run the risk of either overfilling or underfilling the material, your tooth with the sealer. But when using a microscope, you're able to see a little bit better. And in those cases even, the goal is to only fill in the upper half and then use a file to push the sealer down. And that is the safest way to avoid an overfill. And everybody else, I think they should just use a sealer like the regular material, just injecting it either into on a paper pad or dipping the cone or file into the dispensing tip and then placing it in all the way down. So I think that we try to address the issue of why sealers should be non-resorbable and the importance of a sealer's persistence, not only for the short-term success, but more importantly for the long-term success of the tooth. For Rebuild Endo, I'm Ali Nasseh.
And Alex Fleury.
And we hope you found this information helpful.